Welcome, my name's Nicole. I'm the Environmental Outreach Coordinator for WSSC Water. And today we're standing on the Patuxent River to learn more about this water and what's in the river and the work that WSSC Water does to provide drinking water for the community, but also to protect the environment. So we'll be talking about what's going on here in the water in the river, and then also talking about something called invasive species. So the Patuxent River is the only river in Maryland that starts and ends entirely in our state. It starts where Frederick, Carroll, Howard, and Montgomery counties come together, and it ends all the way down at the Chesapeake Bay in Solomon, Maryland. And the unique thing about this river is that WSSC Water has two drinking water reservoirs, which means that we have a dam at two parts of the river to help hold some water back so that we can supply drinking water to our customers. And that's where we are. This is our T. Howard Duckett Reservoir, and it holds the drinking water for 1/3 of our customers. Standing here at our boat ramp, you see all of these rocks here, and these are here to help do what we call stabilize the bank of the reservoir. Because the water in the reservoir changes with the rain that comes down, the water can be all the way up to the edge here where the trees are. So the rocks are here to help make sure that we don't end up with a whole bunch of soil coming down into our reservoir and making the water really cloudy. If you were to get close to this reservoir, you could see that even though it looks kind of greenish behind me because you're seeing the reflection of the trees, that the water is actually clear and you can see down to the bottom. So looking here, you can see that we can see down into the bottom, just a few feet of water here. So what are some things that you see under the water? We're gonna take a few moments and just look and make a mental note in your head of what you think is under the water. So you may have seen some leaves and sticks, rocks. We also have what we call sediment, which is soil that's come down into the reservoir. Maybe you were lucky enough and you got to spot a fish or some insects in the water. And then there's also some little seed pods. So these dark things right here, those are just pieces of seeds. There's some grass. And every once in a while we see a little fish, the shadow of a little fish in the water. So I'm gonna just put my stick over here and see if we can get some of the fish. They like to hide underneath this log because it creates a space for them to be safe, right? So that other fish can't come after them or birds. And if you look, you may also start to see some bubbles coming up to the water. And what do you think those bubbles mean? Those are telling us that there's something breathing under there. So there could be something like a clam or a fish in the sediment here, right? Or maybe there was even maybe a turtle if we were out deeper in the water. So I just found this stuff laying here underneath a rock. Where do you think it came from? So not only is this reservoir here for drinking water, but we do let people come to fish and go boating on kayaks or canoes. They can go for hikes and walks. And unfortunately, sometimes people leave their trash. And this becomes a big problem, especially something like this fishing line, because it can get wrapped up around a bird's legs or wrapped up around a turtle and could make it so that they can't move. Another problem, thankfully this one doesn't have it, but a lot of times fishing line has something really sharp attached to the end of it. Does anybody know what that might be? A fishing hook. And so if you see this out, you want to be really careful that there's not a hook when you go to pick it up. And I just turned around, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but there's a little lizard moving in the grass behind me. So there's also all kinds of really cool wildlife here. We have these are called skinks. We have snakes sometimes that come out and sun themselves on the rocks. We also have lots of deer, raccoons, squirrels, turtles. So we love people coming out to our watershed areas to hang out with their families, picnic, play on the playground. But we just ask that when you have trash, that you put it in the trash cans or you take it home with you. So a term you may hear your teacher use is invasive species. And so we're going to talk about what that means. So thinking about what all living things need to survive, we talk about 4 things. Can you think of what those might be? So some things that we say all living things need, right? They all need food, they all need water, they all need air, and they all need space or shelter. And so the invasive species is any living thing, so it could be a plant, could be an insect, an animal, that comes to an area. So it could come to an area like this, to our recreation area, to our forest, and it takes over because it's really good at getting all of the things that it needs to survive. So it's really, really good at getting its food, water, it takes up a lot of space, and it can survive because it not only has shelter, but it also doesn't have any predators because it's new. And so if you think about your parents giving you something new to eat that you've never tried before, it's the same thing with invasive species. When there's a new insect that comes into an area, the animals here don't know they could eat it. And so there's no predator for that insect, so they can take over. So I'm going to show you one plant that's been taken over by an invasive insect and show you the problem that that causes. So I was just saying that there can be invasive insects that take over because they don't have any natural predators. And that's happening right here in Maryland with something called an emerald ash borer. And the ash tree is a common tree in Maryland. I'm standing next to one of these American ash trees. And this tree has been infested just over the past 3 years by the emerald ash borer. So if you look at it, you can see that there's all these little tunnels that have been eaten into the bark of the tree. And it's actually the inside, right? The bark is fallen off. And so it's the larva, so it's not the adult insect, but the larva that is in the tree and eats their way through it. And then if we can look, it's hard to see, but there's some holes, and that's when there's one here and here, that's when the larva comes back out to be ready to be the adult. And then if you were to see these emerald ash borers, the insects, they look like a really bright green, shiny beetle. And so if you see them out and about in your yard or in a park, they actually ask you to kill them right away, to not worry about it. We know we don't want to kill insects, they want to be outside, but this one's a bad one because it's killing a lot of our trees here in Maryland. So we're standing here next to another American ash tree, just right next door to the one we just were looking at. And this tree is unique because this branch that's right on top of me has been infested by the ash borer. We can see some holes in some areas where the bark is coming out. And if we look at the main trunk, there's some holes there too, but if we look all the way up, we can see that the tree looks still healthy because there's leaves still on most of the tree. So we know that it's still able to get the water that it needs from its roots up to its leaves to make food. But if we follow this branch out, we can see that some of the branches don't have leaves on them anymore. And that's a sign that the tree is starting to die and not be able to get the nutrients that it needs to make food. So we're standing here next to what are called azalea bushes. Azaleas are really common native bushes here in Maryland. In the spring, early summer, they get white or pink, sometimes reddish looking flowers. We're out here in the summertime, so the flowers are all gone, which is good because it means there aren't any bees that we have to worry about right now. But what we want to do is, not only do I have my azaleas, but I have some vines that are growing up over the azaleas. And this is a problem because looking at my azalea and the vines, if the vines are growing over the azalea's leaves like this, the vine's going to be the first thing to get the sunlight. So that means that it's going to be able to make food faster than the azalea, and it's going to keep being able to grow and grow. So we want to get rid of these. The other reason why we want to get rid of the vines is because they wrap themselves around the branches of the azaleas, and they can constrict them the same way that a snake would constrict its prey, and make it so that water can't get up into the leaves so the azalea can make the food through photosynthesis. So that's why we want to get rid of the vines. So to get rid of the vines, it's really important, a few things. You want to have some gloves on. This is mostly to protect your hands from getting scratched. If you're allergic to poison ivy, you probably are going to want to have long sleeves on and long pants. Definitely having good pair of sneakers on to protect your toes in case you step on something. And so we need to think about our vine. If I just pull it from here, am I going to stop it from really growing? And the answer is no, because the roots are still in the ground, and the roots, as we know, are where plants grow from. It's where they're getting their nutrients. So what I need to do is I need to figure out where this vine is coming from. So it's kind of like working a puzzle backwards, that you have to hold on to the vine and try to separate it from your azalea or your plant's branches. So it's important to know what your plant that you want to keep looks like and what your vines that you don't want look like. And this is where it can be helpful to have two sets of hands, maybe having a parent or a sibling help. And so you can see I'm just kind of unwrapping this vine from our azaleas and moving the branches out of the way, pulling any other parts of the vine with me. And now I'm going to get some clippers. So some garden clippers. The goal, if we can, is to pull this vine out with the roots, because again, like I said, the roots is where the water is coming from to help that vine to grow. So if I can pull as I get close to the base of the vine, I'm going to try to pull the roots out. If I can't, I'm going to clip back as much of the vine as I can. Now it's rained the last few days, so hopefully it'll be easier to find and pull the roots. So I'm going to go really far down here towards the soil, find the base of this vine and pull as hard as I can and see if I can get the roots out. So unfortunately, nope, I just got more vine, but I still got a lot of vine off of our azalea. And so the unfortunate thing about invasive species is that because they grow so well, if we can't get to their roots and pull them out, then the only way we can really manage them is by pulling them or cutting them like we just did. And that's okay, but it takes a whole lot of work. So what we want you to think about with these invasive species is that we want to try to stop them as soon as we can. And the way you can stop them is by not introducing them in the first place. So being really mindful about planting only plants that belong in your neighborhood or in our area. And if you do see vines or invasive plants growing up, trying to pull them from the roots before they get stuck into our native plants like this one here. Sometimes you can dig up the roots of the vines with a machine, but because of the way the azaleas are, with the roots or the vine all tangled, we can't get to the roots of just the vine because we would also hit the roots of the azalea. So right now, the only way we can really manage these vines is by pulling them just like we did today. And so now what I'm going to do with this, and what you can do at home, is after you clean up, you want to make sure that this stuff gets put out with your lawn pickup. Here we just have trash cans where we come and pick up all the trash because we don't want to just throw this out into nature, because then it can just grow again and continue to spread. So you want to make sure you put it out with your same pickup that would be for branches and leaves in your neighborhood. Thanks for joining us today at our Supley Lane Recreation Area. We're just one of the areas where students from Prince George's County come to release their sunfish during the sunfish releases for sunfish in the classroom. But we also, here for WSSC Water, have 6 different watershed recreation areas. So this at Supley Lane is one of them. It's one of the only ones in Prince George's County. We're close to Laurel, Maryland, but we have other ones that you can join. And we're going to share the website so that you can come with your family, enjoy this playground, you can picnic, you can hike, fish, you can bring your dog as long as you keep it on a leash, and enjoy a nice, beautiful day at our Supley Lane Recreation Area.